And so it is now our opportunity to welcome our Facebook family that is joining us on Facebook Live, and also our YouTube family that will be joining us following the morning message when the video is uploaded to our YouTube channel. And for those of you who have not yet done so, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Once we get to 100 subscribers, we get some additional benefits from being part of the YouTube family. And so this morning, we're continuing with our global theme of timeless wisdom and evolutionary vision. Our theme for the month of March is open to possibilities, and today we are exploring release and let go. Releasing that which no longer serves us and letting go, knowing that the universe abhors a vacuum. And so when we release that which does not serve, it creates that opening for something magnificent and greater to come into our lives. And so as we open to possibilities, we allow ourselves to open to God's highest idea for our lives. We open to the direct impress of spirit, that divine download, through which spiritual visioning allows us to tap into those realms of possibilities, which are much greater than we can begin to imagine for ourselves. And so the trivia for this morning, again, from my new discovery last week, and that is the website calendar.com. Today, March 14th, is Pi Day, Pi, the mathematical pi. Pi is a mathematical constant that defines the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. And I'm sure our math specialists and math majors out there have a real clear understanding of this. I remember the terminology. I don't remember what the full impact of it is. This statement, though, I would like for you to put a bookmark beside, because we're going to come back to it in a moment or so. Pi is an irrational and transcendental number, which means it can go on into infinity. So bookmark that statement. Many people celebrate Pi Day by eating pies, P-I-E-S, and organize pie eating contest. That might be something fun to go to. Others engage in competitions to see who can recall pi to the highest number of decimal places. So there's always something for everyone to engage in that suits their particular interest and their particular knowledge set, if you will. This morning, we continue to explore the process of releasing envisioning. Releasing is about making room for a greater good to be expressed or received, for change and healing to take place. Again, we're opening for a greater good to be expressed and received in our lives. Much like Pi, the experience of visioning, and remember I asked you to bookmark this, visioning, it's more than a one-time occurrence. It continues on into infinity. The process of visioning is not a one-time occurrence. It continues on into infinity. Michael Bernard Beckwith says this: 100% of spiritual growth is in the letting go. Imagine that for a moment. 100% of our spiritual growth is in the letting go. Releasing and letting go of ideas, beliefs, and attachments that no longer serve. This creates openness and spaciousness. Releasing involves removing obstacles and impediments that get in the way of living the vision. And remember last week we talked about living the vision as a way of being. And we continue to ask that question. The first question in envisioning is, what is spirit? What is God's highest idea of itself as my life? And that creates that opening then for us to live the vision. And another step in the visioning process is the release. and that is the letting go of those obstacles and impediments that get in the way of our living the vision, and releasing the vision, releasing and embracing is where our work lies. And this is where we begin to see the manifestation of the vision, releasing and embracing. That's where our work is. And so continuing with our annual theme, the evolutionary vision embodied in our CSL Global Vision Statement that we're focusing on today is we envision a worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. Just imagine that for a moment. Just to allow that to come into your imagination. A worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether from errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. And then the timeless wisdom of our Science of Mind principles teaches we believe the ultimate goal of life is to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. So releasing is not based on what we choose. This is an important thing to remember in this process. Releasing is not based on what we choose to release, but it's based on Spirit's highest idea revealing what must be released. Remember, Spirit always has a higher idea for our lives. And so our job is to ask Spirit what needs to be released. And then our work is to be still, to listen to the voice within, and to follow its guidance. As Spirit fills our being with truth, we can relax, release, and let go of all that is no longer needed. As Spirit begins to reveal the truth, we relax, we release, and we let go. Three things: we relax, we release, and we let go. And I offer some illustrations of how this might outpicture in our lives. First of all, as a matter of spiritual law, growth cannot take place until we open up to new learning by catching Spirit's ideas about what we need to let go of. This is all about catching Spirit's ideas. Through visioning for what is to be released, we set the stage for receiving greater good, going beyond our beliefs and attachments and allowing change to take place. Remember, Ernest Holmes says that the spiral of life is upward. This means that we must always be open to expansion because we are expanding, whether we agree to it or not. This is just the way life works. And so as we consciously participate in the expansion and growth in our lives, we go beyond our beliefs and we really catch the vision that Spirit has for our lives. As we embrace Spirit's highest idea for our life, we release untruths. By doing so, we automatically make room for being lifted out of wrong tendencies, out of discord, and even out of illness. Rama J. Veman, in the Visioning Student Workbook, writes this: our vision begins when the mind is momentarily free of everyday thoughts, worry, fear, expectations, criticisms, etc. When the moments grow between each thought, vision begins to appear. When the moments grow between each thought, vision begins to appear. And I offer another illustration of this. I remember when I was going through my practitioner training, our instructor offered this as a illustration of how we can hear the voice of Spirit. And she used a musical score. Those of you who are a vocalist or may play a musical instrument recognize that in a musical score, there are rest notes between certain phrases certain points in a particular composition. And it's in those rest notes, those pauses between one movement into the next movement, is where we hear the voice of spirit. And this is what I think Rama Benon is offering to us this morning, where she says, our vision begins and ends. Our vision begins and ends when the mind is momentarily free of everyday thoughts. It's that pause, those moments between the thoughts where the vision begins to appear. And the second point is, while it is not easy to release our troubles and to give up the things we resent and regret, I know that we are an enlightened community, but there are those cousins and the nephews and the other family members that we know that lead with their wounds, their regrets, and their troubles. They're hard to release and let go of. Visioning allows us to listen to Spirit's highest idea of what needs to be released and forgiven. And so last night, before going to bed, or as I was getting into bed, I just asked for Spirit to reveal to me what it is that I am to release. And I thought that this would be a nice practice for my sleep. And so what that did, though, was opened up a huge can of worms that I was not prepared to be opened up. And I did experience a very restful sleep, even with the anxiety of making sure that I got up on time for the time change. And usually my body clock will go off, but I set the alarm last night because of the time change, just to make sure that I was up on time this morning. But in that process of Spirit revealing to me those areas in my life to go back and take another look at and release the angst and the anxiety and the disappointments and all of those things, all of those troubles that have been just buried over. We tend to stuff things. We tend to stuff things in our lives. And so as we remove those layers that we have overlaid, as we remove the bypasses that we talked about last week, it reveals then what Spirit is allowing us or inviting us to release and to let go of. And again, this is not a one-time process. With repetition, we catch more insights, and this will expand our vision to become a way of life. And I love the writings of Howard Thurman. And in his book, The Centering Moment, he offers this: sometimes our experience or self-confidence is so overwhelming that we forget the limitations by which our lives are surrounded. Sometimes our experiences of self-confidence is so overwhelming that we forget the limitations by which our lives are surrounded. So in our spiritual practice of visioning and releasing, it's yet another opportunity to become aware of the limitations that surround our lives and to let go of those limitations, being open to what God's highest vision of itself is for our lives. And the third illustration, all beginning and more advanced levels of spiritual growth are not about getting. This is not about getting. This is often a mistake of what visioning is about. Remember the movie The Secret and the comments that it doesn't work, that practice doesn't work? Well, it's right, it doesn't work if you only engage in the practice one time, unless you're really highly evolved. and it comes through. It's a practice that requires repetition that brings about a change. And I'm just reminded of the lyrics to a song that we used to sing in the church of my youth. And that is something on the inside, working on the outside, bringing about a change in me. So it's always something that is working on the inside and it reflects on the outside that brings about a change in our life. As we begin to see and describe the vision of what needs to be released, we find that we catch more insights, which will ultimately manifest in our life. And my good friend, Ray Jordan, who for many years served as the visioning coordinator for our Centers for Spiritual Living, offers this. All spiritual work is a process of subtraction. Again, we're back with the math this morning. All spiritual work is actually a process of subtraction, the releasing of old ideas about us and false beliefs about ourselves. By releasing old ideas and false beliefs, we welcome insights which reveal how to open to our highest good. And that is our goal, to always be open to our highest good. And I add to that, the highest good for all that are concerned. Again, remembering that the spiral of life is upward. And so as we expand and grow, as we expand in consciousness, as we expand in the awareness of the truth that God absolutely is all that there is, we create that opening for others to catch on to that wind, if you will, catch on to the tailwind of our growth. We bring others along with us, not by our words, but by our actions, by our thoughts, by our deeds. Remembering again that our job in this process is to ask Spirit what needs to be released. Our work, notice the distinction between our job and our work. Our work is to be still. Our job is to ask, our work is to be still, to listen to the voice within and to follow its guidance. This is where the how is revealed. You know, it's our nature to ask, how does this work? How am I going to go about doing this? Our job is to ask. Our work is to be still, to listen, and to follow the guidance. This is where the how is revealed. And acknowledging Women's History Month, let us be mindful of this. There's an often quoted trilogy in Science of Mind that says, where our attention goes, energy flows, and manifestation follows. Where our attention goes, energy flows, and manifestation follows. For manifestation, there are 3 stages that are central to its process, to its outpicturing. The first one is putting our conscious attention on asking for Spirit's highest vision of what needs to be released. The second is to keep our attention on the question long enough to receive the visionary insight of what is to be released. And then the third one is manifesting the vision by committing to embrace the consciousness and creative mind stages. This is the repetition. Let us keep in mind that socially marginalized individuals face situations in their lives every day. However, there's rarely a one-size-fits-all solution for dealing with them. This is going back to where our attention goes, our energy flows, and manifestation follows. So in facing these difficult situations in our lives, and especially those of us who are identified as marginalized, I don't like that term, but it's just another illustration uh, of saying people experience put downs. I'm just going to get really real. People experience put downs every day in their lives. Sometimes you want to sit down with the offender and offer some teaching, offer them some ideas to do better, invite them into a conversation. It's not about calling them out, as we've been discussing these last few weeks. It's about inviting them into a conversation and teaching them to do better. Now, there are other days. There are other days when you're just out of patience and you want nothing more than to see the offender removed from your visual and physical space. It's like the expression in the scripture that says, "Get thee behind me, Satan." I offer some examples of this. You're in a situation where a manager or a person of authority continuously makes off-color jokes that hurt women and people of color. You host regular large events and your colleague consistently forgets to contact sign language interpreters for your events. Now, for those of us who are not visually, or for those of us who are not hearing impaired, this may seem like a small thing. But for our brothers and sisters who are differently abled, this is a big deal that allows them to participate fully into whatever the process is. So you host large events on a regular basis, and a colleague forgets to contact sign language interpreters for your event. Another example, a new hire repeatedly greets a trans woman in the organization with, "Hey dude," even though this new hire has been repeatedly told not to do so. And so out of all of this arises the question, okay, what do I do? What do I do? And this is what I call to offer, what I offer as our call to action this morning. The daily practice of self-forgiveness. As harmful and often subtle thoughts come up in unexpected ways, the practice of self-forgiveness frees us from toxic buildup in our own being. We learn to release and let go of that which is no longer needed. Ernest Holmes writes this: "Ignorance stays with us until the day of enlightenment, until our vision toward the spirit broadens and casts out the image of a no longer useful littleness." In other words, we get our bloated nothingness out of the way. If we have the will and the imagination to set our vision in an opposite direction and hold it there, the creative genius of the inner life transforms the image of limitation and transmutes it into liberty under law. And so as we open to possibilities, we allow God's highest idea for our lives to reveal itself. We receive the direct impress of Spirit's divine download through the practice of spiritual visioning. And this allows us to tap into a realm of possibilities much greater than we can ever imagine. And we begin to relax, to release, and to let go of all that is no longer needed. And our affirmation for this week is, the more I release, the more good I can experience. The more I release, the more good I can experience. Let us come together in prayer. And so as we turn within to that infinite space, that infinite place where we know that God absolutely is all that there is, I know that this is a place where the power and the presence of the living Spirit resides in and through me as me, for it is my life. It is the life of each one that is participating in this celebration of life here at the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living, a non-local, virtual, spiritual community connecting hearts across the globe, connected with our global organization, Centers for Spiritual Living, and connected with all faith traditions where truth is being taught, all places that are open to spiritual truth seekers, to lifelong students of recognizing that there is something greater that is always choosing to express as me. And so as I tune into and tap into and ask that which is greater to reveal itself through me as something bigger than my imagination, I open to its infinite possibilities. And opening to infinite possibilities, I bless all places where truth seekers are gathering, knowing that there is one life, one power, and one presence, one highest idea for good that is always expressing itself. I speak a word of blessing this morning for each one that is experiencing a transition in life, whether it's the transition of a loved one or a friend or a classmate, preparing to leave this physical plane and move into the greater yet to be of this experience known as eternal life. Whether it is those who are seeking right livelihood that provides for a standard of living that allows full participation where all needs are met at all times, in all places, and in all situations. For those who are experiencing transitions related to right living spaces, knowing that the highest idea of God is revealing itself as safe and secure living space, again, where all needs are met. I know that as I continually go within and ask Spirit to reveal itself through me and as me in ways that I understand. And once I have an understanding, then I ask, what is mine to do and what is mine to be? What is mine to be and what is mine to do? Recognizing that those two processes go hand in hand. What am I to be? Creates within my consciousness that space of knowing what it is that is required for me to go to the next step, and that is the doing. And so as I continue to bless all that are part of this spiritual community, this place that I call home, this place that we call home, I know that we are divinely guarded, guided, and protected along this journey called life. And so for this and so much more, I give thanks. Releasing this word into the law, I know that all is well, because the law only says yes to what is placed into it. And so again, in deep, deep gratitude, I release, I let go, and I allow it to be. And I invite you to affirm this with me as we say, and so it is. And now it is our opportunity to participate in the divine flow of circulation, recognizing that the law works in all forms. And so our statement of abundance, I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. I release this visible substance as an outer symbol of my inner supply into the physical world. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. And we continue to express gratitude for the ways that you support our center through your abundance. Your generosity allows us to continue to improve our technology and to bring forth a visual experience until we are together again, and to also continue into what we're referring to as a hybrid experience, where we continue to engage and invite our virtual community to be a part of our ongoing celebration. Can you imagine the wonderful mix that that is going to be when we are gathered here in the center, embracing and experiencing the love within the space, and also extending it and sharing it with our global community? That's a vision that I hold, and I know that that vision is going to manifest itself in stages. In stages, it is coming forth. And so through your generosity, we are continuing to bring forth programs and offerings that elevate our consciousness and include us in this law of circulation. So I say thank you for your generosity. And we thank our Facebook community and our YouTube community. And we will see you next week, continuing our theme, Open to Possibilities. And the message will be with open arms.